Hello, it's lovely to have you here. My name is Hannah Bennyhood. I am a full-time artist and a qualified architect. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is a bit of an experiment, this video. I am calling this series One Take, Hot Take. And the idea is behind it is just to kind of have a very informal conversation about a different topic in the world of art and design. So I'm not going to do any flashy edits or anything like that. So if you want to just like put this on as a podcast, like you're not missing anything visual here. It's just me sitting in this chair and maybe Honey moving around occasionally. On this YouTube channel, I share my creative journey and the lessons I've learned along the way. So if that's something you're interested in, please be sure to subscribe and also give this video a thumbs up because it really helps me, helps the algorithm. And yeah, let's just get into it, shall we? So my work mostly exists in like the public realm, as in I do make public art pieces, whether that be murals or installations or sculpture, but I also dabble in like illustration or like DIY. I'm very like, I kind of try and follow my nose a bit, and also I follow the money, which is kind of what we're going to be talking about today. So today I wanted to talk about the research that was released, I think it was just released this week maybe, or the Guardian article came out this week by Industria. Let me see. Industria, apologies. I think it's written by two women. I think they're anonymous. I tried to find them on Instagram as well, and I think they're just working under this name. But they basically did a study on artists' pay within publicly funded institutions, within the public sector. Yeah, publicly funded art institutions, and did a report on it, and then the Guardian did an article about it. I'll leave everything linked below if you want to have a look at everything, which I highly recommend you do. And yeah, I just have a lot of thoughts. So I thought I would share them today. Like, they're not all like fully formed or like extremely, I'm just going to give you my experience or my take. That's what the whole thing is, my take on this situation. So yeah, feel free to disagree with what I think. I'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts. So first of all, let's go into the research. I read it all, and oh my god, like, I think the research that they did in the paper that they put together is so good. Like, so good. So unbelievably depressing, but just really well put together. I'm dyslexic, so I find generally like reading like, you know, research articles or stuff like that like quite difficult, but like this was so easily digestible. You can tell their artists are so lovely presented. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I just thought it was so eye-opening, and it's really made me reconsider some things, if I'm honest. But I also think simultaneously, especially with the Guardian article, there are some like issues with this trope of like the starving artist. So let's just start first of all with the research. So the research is basically about artists that work within like publicly funded galleries, right? And so that is absolutely not my experience. Like, I really I've never really understood how those galleries work, and now after reading this research I think I realised that I actually understood them perfectly, but I just thought surely that can't be right, because whenever I've looked into doing something for a gallery or applying for something for a gallery, whenever I've looked at the fee, honestly, I have just like laughed out loud. I'm just like, I don't get it. I don't understand how this is working. And I always thought I was just like really misunderstanding something like fundamental. But I think this is just how the galleries work. So basically they have some examples here. I did write a couple of notes down where people have worked full time on projects, and for 2 years they have been given £6,000, or for 9 months £3,000, or 3K for a year. And previously when I've kind of looked up opportunities and I've seen numbers like this, I've just been like, I don't like. I just been like, well, I can't live on that, and I've just dismissed it. I've just completely dismissed it, because who can live on this? And from like reading this, what I'm seeing, what I'm understanding is that people are doing other jobs on the side, obviously to try and live, because you can't live on 3K a year. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. For me, like, these institutions, whatever they might be, like the Tate or the Design Museum, have always been such a like aspiration for me. Like, they've always been something that I wish one day I could be commissioned by. But like, after reading this, I just think I just need to actually just like take it out of my mind. Like, just maybe like they're not worth it. Basically, they're not worth it, because what they do is they give you like a cultural stamp of approval. But do you know what's better than a cultural stamp of approval? Cash. That's what's better, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I had an interview with someone recently, and they asked me like what was one of my dream commissions, and I said, by the time I die, before I die, I would love to do something in the Turbine Hall. And I'm sure that's the dream for lots of artists, but like, honestly, if this is the way that you have to get there, then, I'll just change my dreams. Like, and that's, I mean, it is sad, but also, you got to do what you got to do, haven't you? And then what they talk in the research, they basically, when they come to suggestions, they talk about creating UBI, Universal Basic Income, basically. And I mean, you can't talk about all of this without talking about politics, can you? And just generally the cost of living crisis and the difference between my parents' life and my own life, like in terms of accessibility to housing and inflation and stuff like that. But what I'm struggling with slightly is like, I understand the argument for these like large scale structural changes, which I agree with and I think should happen. But I feel sometimes like I feel like what I try to do anyway with my channel or with my Instagram is to try and give aspiring artists like a way to, or help thriving right now. And I suppose that means like, that does mean like kind of working within, our capitalist structure, basically. And I feel like, of course I agree, everyone should have basic housing, food, blah, blah, blah. Of course that, you should have all that stuff. I agree. But also I think an issue with artists is that it's kind of like frowned upon for you to aspire to more than just survival. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're not allowed to want to aspire to make a middle class income from your artwork. And honestly, that is what I strive for. And to be honest, like, if I can't do that, like if I don't feel like that is possible, and I don't expect magic, I don't expect things to happen straight away or overnight, but if that's not something that is possible and sustainable for me, then I won't do it. I'll do another job, and like I'll do art as a hobby. And obviously that would be super sad, not only for me, but also I think for like, society, if artists decide not to pursue a career in art. But I am just personally not willing to work for nothing. It's just not an option. It's just not an option for me. I don't work for publicly funded galleries, but my main clients are local authorities, so my work is mostly publicly funded. And there is a lot of exploitation, I think, within the public art sector, or whatever you would call it as well. Mostly I would, what I've spoken about quite a bit on this YouTube channel and also on my Instagram, is the culture of open calls and how much work clients ask for completely unpaid before they make their decision who they choose to actually appoint. The amount of intellectual property that clients get for free is like outrageous. Absolutely outrageous, in my opinion. And I've spoken to people in the public sector who run these open calls, and their argument for it is the fact that anything over like 25k you have to go to tender because it's public money, right? But the thing is that there are different ways you can go about it. You could absolutely do a 2-stage tender where you first ask for expressions of interest, people submit their details, which is very light touch, and from there you then shortlist and pay people for their ideas. And I wish, I honestly, I think I've only had that happen to me once from a developer. Once a developer did that, but in the public sector, I would say maybe once I've been shortlisted and paid, or twice, shortlisted and paid an honorarium for an interview, like £200, like nothing, considering how much time I put into the proposal. And they're just other sectors that, this would just never happen. And I think what I find tricky is like navigating, like I feel like sometimes as artists we have to take some responsibility and turn some stuff down, which I do quite a lot. Let me give you an example. Last week someone emailed me offering me a micro grant, right? Which was between 250 and £500. I mean, hardly anything at all. And the amount of information they were asking for just to be considered for this micro grant. They wanted to know about me, they wanted to know about my organisation, they wanted to know about the project I was proposing to do with that money, how would it engage with the community. They even asked for like character references from third parties, all just to be considered for £250. I was like, are you joking? I was just like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I will go and do something elsewhere. Thank you very much. I don't want your £250. It's just outrageous. And then, even when you do get commissioned, it is so difficult to get paid. Like, the bureaucracy within the public sector to try and get an invoice paid is stifling. Honestly, it's by far the worst bit of my job is chasing invoices. And the things that I hear from the public sector which drive me insane are, for example, well, at least you know you'll get paid eventually. I mean, are you joking? Are you joking? How about you call up my mortgage company and you tell them, don't worry, Hannah will get paid eventually, and then she'll pay you. It's just not how things work in the real world. And I don't know why we have to accept it. And I think there's a real culture, especially with my work, when invoices aren't being paid, there is a real pressure on me to continue working. I mean, I have it in a couple of projects right now, and I just have to be forceful and say, no, tools down. I'm not doing anything until this invoice is paid. The thing that worries me about articles like this in The Guardian and stuff, though, is that I feel like it doesn't tell the full story of being an artist, you know, in the present day. Because it is possible to make middle class income as an artist if you are willing to be commercially viable. Now, I don't think every artist should have to be that, and I think this public sector thing and the public funded galleries has to be sorted. But what I'm worried about is the narrative of it is impossible to make money as an artist, or you're either starving as an artist, or you are like, you know, a millionaire, Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin, you know, like there's no middle ground. Because there absolutely is a middle ground. You can make decent money, like you might not be rich, but I don't think a lot of us are aiming for richness. You can make money as an artist, you just have to be smart about it. And I fear sometimes that like these articles perpetuate the starving artist mythology, and that stops some young people, especially people from marginalised backgrounds, to even consider a creative career path. So even though I think this study is so good, and the Guardian article, I'm so glad that people were talking about it, I do hope that people also understand that it is possible. Like, it is possible to make a career and have a career as an artist and like make money and live and pay your bills. Like, you can do it. I'm doing it. You can do it. There is definitely an element like within this research where you can look back at, like, you know, how people were housed in social housing, and you know how things were like better for society back in the day, which, you know, yes, I think there's an element of that is like absolutely true. But sometimes I also think with artists there can be an element of like romanticizing the past, and actually when it came to making money off your art and making a living off your art, I don't think there were many people who were actually managing to do that. And I do think that the internet, e-commerce, you know, so free marketing using social media has created an opportunity for artists to make a living in a way that they might have never been able to, ever, back in the day. And like, a lot of the times, a lot of the time, back in the day, the way that you would make money as an artist is that you would die. Like, that was the path to making money. And now we can make money whilst we're alive. And yes, that might mean that you can't do entirely what you want to do. But, you know, that's life. That's life, baby, isn't it? I mean, let's take an example for me. My work centres a lot around engagement. And actually they kind of brought this up in the research. They talked about like the act of art making itself not being valued. And I definitely have found that. So nearly all of my projects have some sort of community engagement workshop element to them. And it's not that I don't believe in that work, I do believe in that work, but that is also a response to the market, as in I know that's where the money is for doing that kind of work, because I don't think the value of just making artwork in itself is recognised as much as putting on a workshop or something like that. And so that has informed how I have created my business, and some people don't want to do that, but you know, there's lots of things in life that we don't want to do. It's just kind of like part and parcel of it, and you try to find a way to integrate it in a way that still, like all my projects I still 100% believe in. And even though sometimes, if I'm honest, like I wouldn't write the brief the way the brief has been given to me, but that's just part of it. I think one of the big kind of end takeaways for me, there was a quote at the end of the research that said, "Stop performing success and working for free, and keep speaking aloud about your experiences." And that just really struck me, because I think that's my biggest issue with like Instagram, and why I try my best to be authentic and transparent about money, is because success, especially on social media, is so performative, and no one knows where anyone else stands. I knew someone, an artist, I loved her work, and she only kind of worked in galleries, on the occasional show, and her work wasn't particularly commercial. She didn't even sell a lot of it. And I kept on just thinking, I don't understand how she is making this work. How is she doing? I kept on like looking at my numbers, looking at her work and thinking, how is this happening? And then one day I heard her being interviewed on a podcast, and she said, she explained that when she got married, she had basically an agreement with her husband that like, I will stay home, I will be the housekeeper, I'll look after the kids, I'll do the stuff, and I'll make my art. That will be my contribution, and he will go out and he will earn the money. Now, look, no shade, babe, you live your life. You live your life, you make your artwork, and you look after those babies. Good for you. I'm happy for her. And what I was really, really appreciative of was her transparency. Because as soon as I knew that, I was like, oh, fine. I can just stop comparing myself to her now, because that's not an option for me. That's not attainable for me. And because she spoke about that, I felt it had such a big effect on me, even though it's something that I can't do. I was like, well, at least I know now. Do you know what I mean? But there are so many artists, I think, that we see, and we would probably I'm not saying she's not successful, she absolutely is successful, but there was a transparency to how she attained that success that I thought was really helpful to understand. You know, I feel like I've done this myself, you know. I mean, I think for years, like, at the beginning, people didn't know I was freelancing as an architect on the side of my artwork, or I just didn't even think about it, about mentioning it. I think a lot of people don't, because it's Instagram is seen as a portfolio rather than like a diary. Do you know what I mean? So we don't know what people are doing behind the scenes. We don't know if someone is also a barista and also working in a shop, as well as actually showing in like a massive gallery, like, because they won't want to talk about that, so we'll never know about it. But I think if we talk about this stuff more openly, it will actually help us all. Anyway, I don't know how long I've been yabbering on for. I feel like that's probably enough for episode 1. And I'm going to see if I can cut this together and get it up within a couple of hours, because if I can, that's a bit of a game changer, and maybe I'll do this again. If there's anything else that you want me to talk about, then please do let me know.